Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my website is wedon'tdie.com, where of course you can always find medium classes, past episodes. If you enter your name and email address at the bottom of the page, it says you get the first few chapters of my book. Secret is it's the whole book. And then also every Sunday at 2 o'clock New York time on Zoom, we offer a free inspirational service called our Sunday Gathering. And there's a medium demonstration included. So loved ones come through each and every week. We're going on our 5th year. It's a big deal. It's fabulous. Alrighty. So let's get on to our episode. I'm excited to introduce you to our wonderful guest. Her name is Nikki Mark, who formerly led operations for hospitality and sports team startups. She has written some beautiful children's books, including Mighty Mom, Mommy Brings Home the Bacon, Mommy's Got a Bun in the Oven. But her current book, her memoir, is why she's here today. The name of that book is Tommy's Field: Love, Loss, and the Goal of a Lifetime. Her son Tommy was just 12 years old when he unexpectedly passed away in April 2018. Since that tragic day, Nikki and her family have established the TM23 Foundation to honor her son and inspire children to play, pursue their dreams, be themselves, and have a positive impact on their community. There's so much more, but of course, we'll let her tell you in her words. You can visit her website at nikkimark.com and the foundation website at tm23foundation.org. Nikki, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Thank you so much. That was so nice.
Well, my
That
heart
was
goes out to
lovely.
you, and I know we're kind of soul sisters, that it's out of our toughest times that there's the opportunity for spiritual growth and then giving, and you're certainly someone who does that. Take us back, though. Tell us a little bit about you. You're in California, I believe, Los Angeles area. Tell us a little bit about you and your family, and then lead us up to.
Sure. Born and raised in Los Angeles, second generation, and my boys were third generation, and married my husband, Doug, we've been together 24 years, two boys, Tommy, Donovan. And my background was in startup companies. I got my MBA. I found myself in the music industry, helping to develop a music startup. And then 9 years later, went into hospitality, a hospitality startup. And that one led me to a professional soccer startup. So one by one, I was in the startup business. And I had a couple months of a break. I took a break from my last startup in soccer, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. Tommy, my older son, was 12 at the time. He said, "What are you going to do, Mom?" He was kind of tired of me being around. Like, could I just go back to work? And I said, "I don't know, but I really want it to be meaningful. And in the meanwhile, I want to refurbish this field in the park down the street that's been empty for 20 years. And let's make it a field, a soccer field, an athletic field so children can play." And he said, "That's so cool, Mom. I can't wait to play on it. There's nothing like that in this neighborhood." And that was part of a conversation where I was taking him down from Los Angeles to San Diego for a soccer tournament. He was a soccer player, and we traveled a lot for soccer. And in that conversation, he also asked me if it was possible to go to sleep and not wake up. And he then said to me, "It must be hard for a parent to lose a child." And, we can get into that. But at the time, I didn't really understand. We were not religious. I wasn't spiritual. I was a busy working mom with a happy life. And we were just going to a soccer game. And then 3 days later, he went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. And that's when everything changed. The person I thought I was, the life I was living, I knew would never be the same.
My goodness. Wow. Where does one go from here? You said it all in a nutshell, but packed in that is, of course, emotion and love and fear and all of those things. What happened? Did you ever find out what it was that had him pass?
The doctors aren't sure. They were not
Really?
sure at the time. They studied his heart. Ultimately, it was his heart that went out. They couldn't explain why a healthy 12-year-old boy who played soccer the night before and didn't faint, would have passed away in his sleep. I didn't really travel down that road so far. I obviously died that day. Everything died that day. I had never experienced any kind of tragedy or loss, obviously to that degree, but really to any degree. I had had very little loss in my life other than a boyfriend here or, something
Right.
normal along as you're growing up. And I surrendered. I had no religion, I had no spirituality, but I surrendered. My senses cracked open. I began hearing and seeing and feeling things. I had televisions coming on. I had a belief system almost immediately like, where are you? I feel you. And I could begin to hear, I could begin to see different colors. My dreams started to change. And so, literally, that day, I began on this new journey. And it was one of extreme grief, bottomless grief, combined with a curiosity of what happens when we die. And because I had such an entrepreneurial background, and I didn't think about this at the time, I've only subsequently thought about it. I was used to startup companies. I was used to creating something out of nothing for people. That's what I did. And so I had two goals. One was to honor Tommy by building this field I told him that we would build, and we would call it Tommy's Field. And it became something that the whole community wanted to pour its grief into. And I would survive for my younger son who deserved his mother and a beautiful life. So I had two goals that I didn't know how I was going to achieve them. But because I came from a startup background, I fell back on sort of my entrepreneurial ways. And I set out to discover whether it's possible to heal a mother's broken heart, because that's what it would take for me to accomplish these two goals. I would need to start healing after I was grieving or in the midst of grieving. And so that became my journey, this experience of overwhelming, inexplicable grief and circumstances combined with a curiosity and hope and a big universe opening up to me as what the possibilities could be that Tommy and I could continue growing and learning together in different forms.
And I want to go through some of those things that happened. But first, will you answer the question, is it possible to heal the grieving heart?
It is possible. Yeah, I've come so far. Someone asked me the question the other day, when did you know you were healed? And I said, healed is like a past tense. This is a lifetime practice of recovery. But I am healing, and I feel like I have been healing so deeply, so authentically for myself and for Tommy and my family and my community that it just keeps, expediting, like going faster and faster and moving in so many different directions and hitting new layers of healing and new layers of healing, almost like it's intergenerational, ancestral. Sometimes I wonder, and I talk to Tommy, like, is it, haven't we had enough? Like, there's always something more. And so, I've accepted that this is a lifetime now of healing for me, and that I am going to share everything I have learned about it with everyone who needs to know, because we've all lost something and we're all healing from something. And I have done, like an entrepreneur, like a little scientist, I've experimented and tested and probed and read. And I thought, if I can save people some time and some money and some heartache, I can lend them my experience, and maybe that will empower them to find their own healing trajectory.
It's the best gift of grief is to being of service. Tell us some more about Tommy and maybe that conversation you had when he started asking you these questions. Let's find out a little bit about Tommy because we know he's very much alive. And then if you would, yeah, share about
Yeah,
Tommy and
he's very excited right now.
oh, I love it. Because then we want to hear about some of those things that started opening up for you that you started saying, hey, he's still here. But love
Yeah.
to hear more about him.
Tommy was a very exuberant, outgoing kid who loved to play, and he played hard. in his 12 years of life, he was always moving. His first words would go, the second was outside. He just wanted to play. And he was a very, very good athlete. And he chose soccer as the sport he loved the most. I think he loved the community of it, the diversity of it. We could travel anywhere, he could play it. And he wanted to be a professional athlete. And he told me when he was 8 or 9 years old, I'm going to be leaving, Mom, by the time I'm 15. Get ready. I'll be leaving. I'll be going to Europe and I'm going to be a professional soccer player. And I thought, okay, I believed him. I didn't know he would be leaving forever. I thought he would just, be leaving to go to Europe, but that was his dream. And we supported that as much as we could. So in Los Angeles, it's a very big city. It's a very crowded city with a lot of traffic. So to play soccer, you're literally traveling. I mean, it's at least an hour a day for most families to get to a field. We would drive all over. So we drove to San Diego for one soccer game, and he and I decided to make a night out of it. And he asked me in that car ride out of the blue, is it possible to go sleep and not wake up? And I said, only if you're really, really old, like your grandmother. And I said, it's the best way to go. No pain, no drama, and then he said a couple of minutes later, it must be really hard for a parent to lose a child. And I looked at him in the passenger seat, like I whipped my head around and I said, well, why would you say that? That's not going to happen here. I go first, you go second, and I explained all the signs I would give to him. We started laughing about the signs I would give him, and he started asking for certain ones. And he asked me about life and death, psychics. Like we were not a spiritual family. We were not religious. I really didn't know where it was coming from. I just thought he was curious. And then I proceeded to just share with him how much I loved him, how proud I was of him. I reviewed his whole life with him, and I was in awe of the way he played in this life, all the things he had tried, so much of what I wished as a child I had had the guts to do. And so I realized, the moment he didn't wake up, oh, it's like we, as Mom and Tommy were talking, but do we have like souls talking on a different level? I mean, I knew nothing, but this was my intuition. Something else was happening that day. And thank God I had the chance to tell him everything I would have wanted to tell him if I knew he was leaving. And I felt so much gratitude for that conversation. And quite honestly, that conversation, every time I doubt if I feel him or, every time there's a moment of doubt, is it real? Is it possible that he could still be here spiritually? I remember that conversation and I tell my human mind, oh, no, 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 like that happened. And so many of the signs I told him I would give him when I leave, he has now given me.
Can you tell us some examples of that? We have, as you can imagine, listeners and viewers that have experienced just deep loss. And sometimes I think we overlook signs, expecting them to be big and mighty. And sometimes they are big and mighty, but we've just loved to hear some of your experiences. And of course, how he's still with you.
Yeah. It started very visually with televisions coming on out of nowhere. Or I would say, God, I feel like Tommy's still here. And then a television would pop on. And there would be someone else in the room with me and a remote control all across, all the way across the room. So there was no denying that something was happening. And it happened not just once, but at least 3 or 4 times in the first couple of months that he left. We joked in the car that day that I would give him the Grateful Dead, a song, as a sign. And I said, no, no, I'm not a Grateful Dead fan. That is your father. He has really overwhelmed us with his Grateful Dead music. Let's find something else. Well, probably about 2 months after Tommy had passed away, my husband had to go on a business trip. I was alone. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, like this blue light flashed on and pointed at the ceiling. I mean, I actually thought like I had died. I thought, oh my God, like, is this it? Did I die? I was up for anything. And I look over and I see, oh no, the stereo remote control just came on by itself, even though the system was off and my husband was away. No music had played all day. And I look and it's the Grateful Dead playing, one of their songs. And I just thought, there you are. I have had him in my dreams. My dreams have really been vivid, and they're a really special time for me where he has sat with me. And I've even seen one time he presented a book that he was reading, and I looked at it and I didn't know that book. He was a big reader. And then I looked up the book and it was extremely relevant to my life. It actually existed. I didn't even know it existed.
Oh my goodness.
So I've had some amazing moments. His jersey number was 23. Our foundation is TM23, based on a brand logo he created for himself because he thought he would be a superstar playing in Europe. And the number 23, you can imagine, is just everywhere. I could be hiking in Peru and a man will walk by with a sign that says number 23. And, some of it might be coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidences anymore, but the truth is, it's a lot more fun to live life that way, and very hopeful and very comforting. And I know because it's not just me who feels that way. I'm sure your audience is full of us.
Full of us. Yes, absolutely. And talk to me about you, or talk to us about you feeling him very much around. And did he co-write the book?
It's funny, I recorded the audio of the book a few months ago, and I looked at it and I said, I wrote this? Like, I knew when I was writing it, we were writing it together. That I knew. And I felt like I had a team helping me because I had never written a full book before. And while I wrote every day and, I had confidence that, well, I've done many startups. I can write a book. Like, let's try this. I felt very like I was definitely downloading him and his humor and his love, and that energetically, I felt like the book was infused with an energy of love that came way beyond me. And in fact, when I read the audio a few months ago, I'm like, oh, I would have changed this, or I would have written it this way. I'm a better, maybe a slightly better writer now. And then I remembered, or I thought to myself, or I got the message, oh, no, no, no. That was the exact energy that we needed to tell our story at that time for the people who need it.
That's right. It's got to be real.
Yeah, that's how I felt. That's what came through. That's what everyone gets.
Tell us about the book. What can we find in it?
So, building Tommy's legacy became a political drama that I never expected. It was
Really?
beautifully tragic. We raised over $1 million in 9 months. The whole community, LA, came out in a big way. There were comedy shows, concerts, kids sold lemonade. They gave their birthday money. I was so inspired by community. And I realized so quickly that, oh, that's why Tommy loved to play, was community, and that he was a connector. And I was actually a very private person and a very kind of introverted person. And now all of a sudden I was front and center, Tommy building a field, trying to make things happen, trying to heal. And I felt like this was very much his energy. And so we raised the money. The city said, we're excited for it. Let's go through the community process. It's part of the, bureaucratic part of Los Angeles. And all of a sudden, there were a couple dozen neighbors that came out and said, we don't want this. We don't want this athletic field to replace a dirt field with holes. We don't want more children. We don't want more soccer. We don't, and on and on. And I thought, oh gosh, we could fix this because these are human problems. I'm operating on such a different level of problems, not little, man-made problems, but I'm trying to heal from the most devastating loss. Surely we could fix this. And it was 9 months of back and forth, which quite honestly is a really long time when you're grieving, when you've just raised the money, when you think it's just a gift you're giving to your city and it's a gift of love. And I realize how much there's just distrust in this world, that just to accept a gift and to trust that we wanted to just honor our son and give to our community was very difficult for some people near the park. And so ultimately, it got approved. Ultimately, the design of the field is so much better because of the battle we went through with the neighbors. And I will say that I am actually, the whole time, I just kept looking at them saying, what are you trying to teach me? Because I knew that Tommy would not put another challenge in front of me beyond just surviving at that moment. And this was his legacy. This is his field. And I knew that there was a reason all this drama must have been happening. And there were many, but in the end, I felt like, wow, I found a voice I didn't have before. I felt like I was becoming my own startup company that I was going to believe in, and that this process of getting the field done would help me achieve. And so the book is about my healing journey. It's how my healing on the inside helped me manifest Tommy's field on the outside, and how the more progress I made healing, the more progress I made on the field. And so while it starts with a loss, and certainly it is infused with everything I've learned about grieving and healing and spirituality and not spirituality, everything, and it's told in the form of a story, it's also about finding meaning and finding purpose and honoring the people we love, and how to restart our lives again so we can activate our grief and knock it out of the park in this lifetime, because I do not intend to do it this way again if I
So
don't
it's
have to.
it's a new and improved kind of handbook for the grieving, really throwing yourself into purpose and community. What would you say to somebody who don't doesn't even know if they have a purpose and has suffered loss and is grieving? And I know volunteering and there's so many good things we can do for other people that help us on our road, but could they read Tommy's Field and be inspired by what's possible within them?
Yeah, that was really my point. My point was to help others who are grieving, but it was also to help community members who want to help someone who's grieving and don't know how, because it's a problem for everybody. What I tell people is this is what you do with every startup. This is what, you do when you have to restart ourselves, is first you make a choice that you want to live and learn to fully live, or you want to not feel so much suffering. That was my thing. I could not live with this kind of suffering and be the mother I needed to be for my younger son, and the wife I needed to be to my husband, or the person I needed to be for myself. And so that was a choice. And then I created the simplest goals: honor my son and survive for my younger one. It's very simple, right? And the right sort of in front of you. And then you take a step. And what's that step? It's whichever one you can, whichever one is going to help you. I decided maybe it was one phone call every day, or one new email, or one new effort to build his field, and one new effort to heal my heart so I could survive for my son. So I was very gentle and I was very present. And I tell people, just the bigger picture, it's so overwhelming to think about, could I live fully again one day? Could I smile again one day? Could I laugh again? And I always tell people, just one step at a time. Like, it's just too big to think about any of that when you're grieving. But you can think about honoring the person you love and miss. And what does that look like? Maybe it's just learning to smile. Maybe it's watching their favorite movie, which is so hard to do. Maybe it's reading a book you've always wanted to read because you think that will bring you closer to some goal you've always had in your life. I felt like I had lost so big, I had nothing to lose anymore. Of course, I still have a family, but I had no fear, because what was going to happen? Like, I've already experienced the worst of the loss of a child. So there was something I felt like I needed to do with this. Otherwise, I would die with it. I'd be living, my heart would be beating, but I would be a shell of myself for the rest of my life. And that didn't honor Tommy. That was not who he was. This is a kid who laughed and smiled and played and was all about community. And I thought to myself, I got to go into like the belly of my grief to find some of that and come out with it. because that's what he would want.
Would he ever? My goodness. How about sports and community? Can we talk a little bit about that? I think most of the people listening, I don't want to say everybody, but they're a little bit older. I wouldn't say old, I wouldn't say young, but 40s, 50s, and everyone else is included as well. So we might not be in touch with sports or we may not be part of a community. Just talk about the importance of those two things if you could.
So I realized that I didn't prioritize play in my life at a certain point, especially as a woman, as a mom. At some point, I got responsible and made sure everyone else had fun and everyone else played. And with Tommy leaving, I really saw the value of play. I understood why he didn't want to do his homework and why he wanted to go be with his friends. I was so grateful that he did. And I keep learning, and this is one of my lessons, is keep learning how to play in this lifetime, because when you play, no matter what that looks like to you, it doesn't have to be sports and soccer. That's my family's love because of Tommy and his brothers, and that's what they love. But play is also, it could be music, it could be writing, it could be art, whatever it is to each of us. It's just important that we do it because we heal through play and we make friends through play and we learn about ourselves and we find new talents within us through play. And it's the most basic, most essential type of behavior that human beings have. And yet and I dare to say, especially women, because I see men are much better at this, making time for play. It's critical that we carve it out for ourselves. And I don't think it's the same as going to the gym and working out. That has a reason, that has a purpose, that has an end result. This is just enjoyment, to play, to do some art or to get on a field, and you make new friends that way and you lift your energy that way. And so the hardest thing when we're grieving and we've lost someone is to think, I want to play. But the truth is, it's the very thing you need the most. And I needed the most. And so I started to do art and paint. I had never painted in my life. I never really thought I wanted to paint in my life. And yet there was actually something very meditative and something healing and something really beautiful that came out of a new form of play I found in the midst of loss. And so I tell people, whatever comes to you, say yes, try, and we can't bring our loved ones back here, but we can play and open ourselves up and learn how to kind of coexist with them in different forms. And that's why I think play is so important. And it is something I try and put into my life every day. I know it's important for me.
I think it's important for everyone, but as you're talking about it, it's like mega overlooked. We put everything
Yeah.
else before us and just sitting back going, do I play? Do I play? I must play. Do I?
Well, and the truth is, if for anyone who's lost someone, they probably feel like I do. When Tommy left, I thought, oh wow, did he make the most of this short life that he had? He played and he had lots of friends and he had all kinds of friends in his life from all his different forms of play. He loved music, he loved soccer, he loved basketball, all different kinds of friendships and community. And we don't know what tomorrow will bring. We don't know how long we all have. But what I learned in the moment he left was how important those relationships are, those interests are, the fun is in this life, that almost life is its own game we are playing, and we should play really, really hard and play it any way we want because we can. We just don't think we can, but we can. And when you get to the end of your life, we're all gonna wish we played, that we really played and enjoyed it in a way that was meaningful to us. And so that is just a message. By building Tommy's Fields, we're sharing his spirit of play with others and trying to brighten our world with more play and inspire people in just a subtle way. Enjoy your lives.
Excellent words. I've talked to surgeons and they say just before someone goes under, they don't think about what they did do in their life. They think about regrets and what they didn't do. So get your money's worth out of life and play. And we can never fail, right? Life's a game. Go for it. If you
Yep.
fall, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try something else. You used the word meditate earlier, meditate something. Are you a fan of quieting your mind? Do you talk to Tommy ever when you're waking up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, in that in between state? Do you think there's an importance in quieting your mind?
Yeah, actually, meditation is one of the first things I turned to help me as I went on this alternative healing journey to explore different ways of healing. I learned quickly that talk therapy wasn't going to work fast enough for me. And when I looked at all the rising statistics of depression and anxiety and grief in the world, of which I was now a part of, I decided that prescription medicine would not work deep enough for me and it wasn't helping enough people. So I wanted to search for alternative ways. And a friend told me a meditation center had opened up down the street. And honestly, the person I was a week prior to Tommy leaving would have never, ever considered meditation. I was too busy and those people were weird. And now I was right there. I thought, this desperate times, I will take on anything and try anything. And I have to tell you, I did breathwork classes, like active meditations and sound bath classes. I didn't do the pure silent ones because I was too traumatized and I could not quiet. I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. I needed to meditate in a way that there was music, there were people around me, and I could learn how. And I have since learned how to quiet my mind and do a quiet meditation. But I still prefer active meditations of a sound bath or breath work. And I believe that they help me move through my grief quickly. Not, I wouldn't say too quickly, but I could feel the grief popping as I was meditating, like as if the fog in my head was beginning to lift. That by making space, it was opening up something new. And so the meditation is definitely part of my daily practice. I think it has also been a big part of my ability to connect spiritually with Tommy because so often I'll see a vision or I'll hear something, or it'll just make it easier when I come out of it to have more clarity suddenly about something I was a bit confused about or stuck on. So it's my go-to. It's free. It's available to everyone. You can do it anywhere. And I think it's like magic.
Do you talk about that in your book?
I do.
Somehow I knew that.
I do.
That's good. There's so much. It's your memoir, but it's also a how-to book, which is beautiful. You had said earlier that you felt Tommy's excitement. How do you feel it? I mean, your mom, Tommy was with you physically and you knew he was there. Is it that same, like, I know you're here feeling?
It's so interesting. Sometimes it's just like all of a sudden he's in my mind, like he's just here, and I could hear like a snicker, or I hear like his words that he would say. It could be my imagination, right? It could be, but let's put that aside. It's just so fun when it happens. Sometimes I'll get the chills. Early on, I got the chills, but the real sign I get personally is a tingle at the top of my head, and it's like something's coming in. And that's where I'm like, oh, who's here? And all of a sudden I get a download, or the download comes as the tingle's coming on. And I know that something magical has happened, that it wasn't my mind that came up with whatever I just got, that it was actually Tommy. Sometimes I think, that could be someone else. But for the most part, I talk to Tommy every day. I write in a journal at night and before I go to bed, and I say goodnight. I tell him about my day and just talk things through. Every night, that's our time. And yeah, I feel like he's with me all the time. And I tell him, I want you to soar and be here when you can, but do what you got to do.
I'm so glad you brought up writing. We've had several guests on lately, parents, and the importance of writing. And you feel like you're just writing to you. And then all of a sudden, sometimes it feels like someone takes over your hand, or you just feel their presence, or you're so in the zone writing that just like your book, you read it back and you think, did I write this? or the
Yeah.
words can sound like them. But it takes something from us. You know, we do all want those big signs, the TV's going on and off, but they can be just as subtle, like you say, feeling the tingling in the top of your head, and all of a sudden something appears in your mind or memory that comes out of nowhere. And I can't stress that enough to people that follow the show, is to pay attention to those things. Never say it's just my imagination. Your imagination is the most powerful force we have. It does not mean you're creating something. It means they're communicating with you. And that's the way we do it. That's soul to soul communication through all those thoughts and our feelings.
Yeah, I would say that like any startup company, you have to have an imagination. You don't have anything new that's coming, and then we're never going to be the same after a loss that deeply, deeply impacts us. So we have to create something new for ourselves, and that requires our imagination. So that's just a fact. It's the most powerful type of sense or I don't, what is imagination? I mean, it's the most powerful thing we have. And to use it is very, very healing. And what I'll add is that when I write to Tommy every night, that's where I get the subtle signs. That's where like I see wisps of air often, or a flicker of the light often. And my husband's asleep. I'm up, by myself, just writing in my journal. And the tiniest, subtlest signs, that's where I get them. And that's partly why I love and treasure that time, because it's a reminder, oh, he's here. Yeah.
And you're in the present moment, which is a must. It's so hard these days. People are so busy, we're multitasking. But when we can take that time to slow down, and you're actually focusing on your writing and you're present, and there it is, there he is. I know you've spoken before about your unconventional, some of the modalities. I've found, or you guys sent to me, that your top 10 tips to, I don't know if you'd say heal a broken heart, but do you remember some of those?
Well, I have a toolkit, a healing toolkit, and I wanted to share with everyone all these different types of healing modalities that we could turn to for help, because I didn't know about any of them. And I was a fairly educated person living in a big city. And I thought, I'm going to try them all. And I want to know if they work. And then when one of them worked, I tested it, like each one at least 3 times, with different people, because I wanted to know if they got lucky or if it really worked. Anything that would lift my spirit just a little bit in the midst of deep, deep grief for just a few minutes was progress. And so I have meditation in there, even yoga, which sounds so mainstream, but when you're grieving and you need to move energy through your body and you want to be part of community, but you still want your alone time, there's nothing like a yoga class to kind of give you all of it in one space. And then it goes all the way to mushrooms, from meditation to mushrooms, because well, it was presented to me that magic mushrooms were a form of deep, deep healing that could take the place of years of regular talk therapy. And I was suffering so deeply. And as long as it was safe and I did it in a private environment with someone I trusted that others knew I had to take a break from my trauma that was on loop in my brain over and over, and I couldn't stop it. And so that's what it did for me. In one session, the loop of trauma was interrupted. And for the first time, I got these deep, deep messages from Tommy directly. So, although I had spoken to a psychic medium, and that was an amazing healing modality in my toolkit that has helped so many people who have lost loved ones, from meditation to mushrooms, the mushrooms being the extreme, gave me this kind of awakening that, oh, we can do this ourselves too. That if our minds really just settled and went offline and we were forced to live with our hearts and our intuition, that we really can like hear and communicate spiritually, telepathically. Like that was very interesting to me. So anything that gave me curiosity, that gave me hope, and helped me understand who I was and my circumstances and why my son had to leave, I was all in. And so my toolkit from here, of healing modalities, meditation to mushrooms, I share with everyone because I want them to feel empowered that there's so many options, there's so many alternatives, and we don't just have to follow a specific healing game plan because that's what insurance companies or others say we should.
Amen to that. Agree. I know that they call them spiritually transformative experiences. I know you had them with the mushrooms. I've never done that, but I do know people that have meditated and opened up a whole new world. There's all kinds of things, shamanic journeying and even journaling. It can transport you to another place. There's dreams, lucid dreams, there's all kinds of things. And like you said, just to lift your spirits. We'll try anything to connect and to get out of the pain. And writing and the meditation you say and everything is just so good. I'd love to hear about your blog because you do an awful lot of writing. And if you could share about your blog and then also tell us about the websites, both the foundation website, if we want to give, how can we make a difference? And also what you have at nikkimark.com.
So every Sunday, I write a new article. I've been doing this for over a year now, and I just share a different aspect of my healing journey. It couldn't all fit in the book, and I was discovering that simply by sharing my story, it was helping people. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a guru. I'm not a doctor. I don't get into the statistics or the actual weeds of grief, but I've lived it. And as a mother, I've experienced it and I'm learning how to activate it. And so what I do is I write different experiences I have about different kinds of healers, whether it be a psychic medium, an experience I've had, and I weave in and out of it research that I've stumbled upon or read or different authors I love. I share with everyone the authors I love, the teachers I love, the experiences I've had, and I just kind of weave them all together in a blog every Sunday. It's a little bit of entertainment for people, and it's maybe a dose of wisdom that comes from some place much bigger than me. And it seems to be helping a lot of people and it's growing. My community just keeps growing and there's a lot of loss and there's a lot of people who feel lost. And I just share. And then that is helping people find their own way. Like I'll give them one type of healer or book. And once you're willing to try something, it will lead you to something else. It's just the first step. And so I love it. I really enjoyed doing it. I do a lot of writing, but it's been really rewarding. And so that's at nikkimark.com, along with a bunch of resources I've written for anyone who is lost or quite frankly, anyone who wants to help someone who's lost. I think that's a big hole that we have. People don't know how to help. And this is about community. It's about everybody when there's a time of loss of any kind. So that's nikkimark.com. TM23foundation.org is all about the Tommy's Fields that we've built. We've done 2 now. We have a 3rd in discussion with the city of Los Angeles. And
Wow.
we do a tournament once a year on Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a very hard day for me and for children who've lost mothers and mothers who've lost children and women who can't be mothers. And so we're going to play. That's what we do is we put on a soccer tournament at Tommy's Field for 250 kids and we play for a number of hours. And so TM23foundation.org has some of the events we do, the pictures of the field. We raise money simply by project. So it's field by field or tournament, and everyone knows where their dollars are going. And it's really rewarding to go to an athletic field and realize whether you gave $5 or $500, that you had something to do with creating this space where children and adults engage with one another and simply play. It's really fulfilling for me. And I think everyone who has contributed to our fields.
I know you're making a huge impact. Your blog alone started with several hundred and now it's over 20,000 followers. So there's nothing worse really than feeling very much alone in your grief and to connect with somebody that understands, even just by reading blogs. It's like, hey, this person gets it. They get it.
The truth is that I feel like anyone who has lost someone they love and they channel that into some kind of honoring of that person, whatever it may be, doesn't have to be building a soccer field. That was our thing. I was doing it anyway, in some shape or form. But whatever it is, I always tell people like follow them, like invest in them because they are driven by a love so deep. They will persevere through any challenges that it takes to create it, whatever it is. And so, whether it's somebody who's lost a child or a loved one through a gun, mass shooting, if they're going to fight that fight to honor their loved one, like I'm betting on them because they are driven by love, not hate. And it's the people that are grieving who have feeling love on such a, a painful level, but also such a true level, genuine level, that if we could just all find a way to channel it into something meaningful that directly honors the person we miss, we can really make great strides to upgrade this world in ways meaningful to all of us. So I try to share how I've done that. And I love seeing people take snippets of my experience and incorporating it into theirs. And now we have like this little army of people going out doing things meaningful to us that keep us connected to our loved ones and have helped us grow and transform and give something of value to this world.
Well said. Speaking of growing and transforming, you talk about being an elder as opposed to growing older. Could you just talk about that?
Yeah, I've learned on this healing journey that we're also concerned about getting older. And now I'm like every wrinkle I've deserved every wrinkle. I've earned it. But that we can just get older, or we could choose to become an elder and turn around at a certain point and teach what we've learned. No, and however hard it is, or however beautiful it is, we could turn around and share it with those coming behind us and better them with it and also transform ourselves by doing so. And there have been at least a handful of elders that I have met on this healing journey whose wisdom and lives have helped me so much. And the fact that they would turn around and spend their time with me and help see something in me I never saw myself and share with me, just knowing that they survived the loss of their child for 50 years ago. That was enough to give me hope that I could too. They didn't even have to say anything, just being there and me realizing, oh, look at the life that they built despite the loss. It's possible. And I think that we all have this opportunity simply by the way we live to become an elder to those who need it coming up behind us.
Grief has the power to kill us inside and even take actions with our lives. And it has an opportunity to give us life and to breathe life into a project, other people, give hope. And that's what you've done. That's what you do. That's what you're inspiring others to do. And the ripple effect will just go on and on. Nikki, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any closing words you have for our friends who are listening or viewing now?
I would just say I have so much meaning in my life, and I'm so grateful to Tommy for that because I told him I wanted to do something more meaningful. I wasn't sure what. I would much rather have him here. We know that. That's not even a question. But I just want to give people hope that it's possible that no matter what we're grieving or what we've lost, there's something so deeply meaningful that can be born from it. And if we're willing to have the courage or take the chance, or we love so much that we're willing to pour ourselves into it, like there's something good going to come out of it. There's just something magical that can come out of it. And so that's, one of the many things Tommy continues to teach me along the way. But I so appreciate speaking to you and telling my story. I hope it helps those who need it.
Absolutely. Can I just ask about the rest of your family, how everybody's doing?
Of course, yeah. Tommy had a younger brother, has a younger brother, and he is now 16. He was 10 at the time. Tommy was his idol, his best friend. Obviously, loss of a sibling is profound, and he is doing really well. He honors his brother. He is a big soccer player like his brother, so he has his own relationship with Tommy, and in his own way, he has grieved and he misses his brother, and he continues to build his life and make it as beautiful as he can. Of course, he's 16, so 16 is complicated. But he's doing really, really great. And my husband is also, doing really well. We do Tommy's Fields together, and he he handled his grief differently than I did. He's a lawyer, and he didn't change his job. For me, it changed everything I wanted to do. For him, it didn't change what he wanted to do. It just changed a bit of who he was. And for me, it was like, oh no, I am on this, I'm going to do something totally different now. And so we have given each other a lot of space to grieve in our own way. But early on, the day Tommy left, he said, we will not be a tragic family, okay? We're going to get through this together. And so that commitment was made day one, and we have stuck to it, and we've gone through, the worst days possible together. And now we're creating some really beautiful ones again.
Nikki, thank you so much for sharing yourself, your story, your family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's our pleasure having you as our guest. And for our listener or our viewer, thank you for taking the time to be here. You can get a copy of the book, Tommy's Field. You can check out Nikki's website, which is nikkimark.com. Nikki is spelled Nikki, nikkimark.com. And the foundation is tm23foundation.org. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com. So much there for you to discover. And at the bottom of that front page, just enter your name and your email address, and you'll get a free copy of my book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Chapter 10 is all about grief. And if you are one of those people that right now it's so hard to even breathe and you're just really suffering with grief, I think it's the most powerful chapter I have. And it's how to survive grief, what happens to our makeup, why we grieve, what we can do to move through the pain, and so much more. So that's my gift to you. I want to just close with some words I found on Nikki's website. Let's all be reminded of the power of play that can inspire, unite, and heal, and that sometimes what brings us the most pain can be the source of our greatest inspiration. So in closing, I'm Sandra Champlain. I've been your host on We Don't Die Radio. I do believe that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is so important. So see where you can fit in some play, and also honor your loved ones. Your life matters. They're still around, and you are loved. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.